On this episode of China Uncensored, the head of the FBI has warned that the CCP has spies all over the United States, including people who appear to be ordinary students and employees. Hi, welcome to China Uncensored. I'm your host, Chris Chappell. You know, some people call me paranoid. At least, that's what I imagine they're saying behind my back. But let me tell you, you may laugh at this tinfoil hat now, but I've heard from a very reliable source there are spies! Spies everywhere! Oh no, my source isn't the homeless guy down on 10th Avenue. I'm talking about head of the FBI, Christopher Wray.
One of the things we're trying to do is view the China threat as not just a whole of government threat, but a whole of society threat on their end.
Whoa! All Chinese people are a threat? That sounds more like something my racist Uncle Ted would say. I mean, seriously, the head of the FBI is basically saying Americans must band together to resist the Yellow Menace? I haven't heard anything that racist since the 1943 Batman movie.
Known as Little Tokyo, since a wise government rounded up the shifty-eyed Japs.
Whoa, that was a dark night. But back to FBI Director Christopher Wray. He was speaking at a Senate Intelligence Committee hearing, and China was a big concern.
The biggest issue of our time is China and the risks they pose. I'm not sure in the 240-some-odd-year history of this nation we've ever faced a competitor and potential adversary of this scale, scope, and capacity.
Wray and other leaders of U.S. intelligence agencies like the NSA and CIA released this report detailing the biggest threats facing the United States. And China is name-dropped a lot. Cyber espionage, intellectual property theft, space weapons, drug warfare, it's not looking good. Also, the intelligence community does not think you should buy Chinese cell phones because they could be spying on you. And when it comes to spying, the NSA probably knows what they're talking about. But it was Christopher Wray's comments about Chinese students studying in the United States that got some people's backs up.
The use of non-traditional collectors, especially in the academic setting, whether it's professors, scientists, students, it's across basically every discipline. And I think the level of naivete on the part of the academic sector about this creates its own issues. They're exploiting the very open research and development environment that we have, which we all revere, but they're taking advantage of it.
The idea that all Chinese students are potential spies for the Chinese Communist Party is a bit shocking, especially to China's foreign ministry.
I don't know where the United States' sense of insecurity comes from.
Well, that sense of insecurity probably comes from the fact that the Chinese Communist Party has been actively trying to influence and infiltrate the United States. The CCP has documented this in its own strategic papers. The way Christopher Wray explained it, he said that it's not just official CCP agents doing the infiltration and spy work. It's non-traditional intelligence collectors like Chinese students at American universities and Chinese workers inside American companies who are gathering small pieces of intelligence on a large scale. Christopher Wray's statements have upset a lot of Chinese communities inside the U.S. The organization United Chinese Americans said painting all Chinese students, and indeed Chinese in America, with such a broad brush as a national security threat is paranoid, inflammatory, un-American, and simply wrong. The Organization of Chinese Americans called it dishonest and insulting. And John C. Yang, head of Asian Americans Advancing Justice, told the Daily Beast, "We cannot have every Chinese student or scientist assumed guilty until proven innocent of a national security threat." So was the director of the FBI onto something? Or was he just being racist and paranoid? For more on this, I'm joined by China Uncensored senior Chinese person, Shelley Jong. Shelley.
Thanks, Chris.
So, Shelley, was FBI Director Christopher Wray being very racist or just a little bit racist?
How about not racist?
But he said that all Chinese students are a potential threat.
That's not what he said. He said that the Chinese government uses students and other academics as spies. And that's not racist, Chris. That's just true.
You mean there really are spies everywhere? Where did I put that tinfoil hat?
Calm down. We're not talking about James Bond here. Sure, the CCP uses professional spies, but they also use part-time spies.
Part-time spies? What, like they need some extra cash on the side?
or they're pressured into doing it, or told they're fulfilling their patriotic duty. These aren't professional spies, they're just ordinary students or employees or business owners who are in the U.S. for legitimate reasons. The CCP just asks them to pass on information every once in a while.
What kind of information?
Oh, maybe you're a grad student doing research in a lab. Maybe you just take a few photos of what you're working on and send it in an email.
Are there a lot of these unprofessional spies?
Well, it's hard to know, but according to this article, a Chinese diplomat who defected said that Australia had about 500 professional spies and up to 700 of these part-time spies. That might not sound like much, but if the CCP has the same number in the U.S., adjusted for population, the U.S. would have about 16,000 Chinese spies.
16,000? Sounds like a lot of spies. And I assume there could be even more here because America is way more important than Australia.
Right. But remember that there are more than 330,000 Chinese nationals studying in the U.S., so it would still be a really small percentage.
So, on a scale of 1 to infinity, how worried should we be about Chinese spies in the U.S.?
Not that worried?
That's not the answer I was expecting.
Look, should we be aware of what the CCP is doing? Yes. And it's important that the FBI is on it. But most of us aren't in a position to stop Chinese spies.
Hey, speak for yourself.
Okay, sure. Look, I think that the Asian American groups were overreacting to what the FBI director said. But they're also right in that we shouldn't start another yellow peril red scare. We can't suspect every Chinese person of being a spy. I was born in China. Does that make me a spy?
I don't know. Does it?
Are you serious?
Hey, you were the one who brought it up.
Okay, you got me. The Communist Party secretly trained me in espionage tactics until I left China when I was 3 years old. And since then, I've been playing the long game. First, I waited for YouTube to be invented. Then, I joined a YouTube channel that exposes the Chinese regime. Now I'm just waiting for the day when I can take over the channel and start broadcasting communist propaganda.
I can't believe you just said that.
I'm not a spy, Chris.
Oh, I believe you. You would make a terrible spy. You just admitted everything.
Yes, I did. Look, there's something that the FBI director talked about, though, that's even more important for Americans to know about: the CCP's influence activities.
How is that more important than worrying about spies?
Well, the party puts a lot of effort into influencing how the rest of the world sees China, and they can do it in sneaky ways that are hard to detect, like using the Confucius Institutes, which the Chinese government sets up in foreign schools and universities to teach a version of Chinese culture that's approved by the Communist Party.
I still think spying is the bigger issue.
Well, they're actually kind of related. This is what Director Wray was talking about when he said the FBI viewed what the CCP is doing as a whole-of-society threat. Whether it's spying or propaganda, the CCP will use all of Chinese society to get what they want. Here's another example: the Chinese Students and Scholars Associations, or CSSAs. These groups are set up in universities across the U.S. On the surface, they exist to support Chinese exchange students, organize fun group activities, and so on. But the CSSAs can also be connected to the Chinese government and help spread the party line on China issues. According to a defector from China's Ministry of State Security, the CCP views CSSAs as information collection and propaganda organizations.
So they're part-time spying on us?
No. Well, maybe some people are. We don't know. But we do know that the CSSAs are definitely helping the CCP push certain views. Like last year when the Dalai Lama came to speak at UC San Diego, the CSSA there kicked up a fuss after coordinating with the Chinese consulate in LA. And this isn't something new. In 2007, a human rights lawyer came to Columbia University to give a speech about forced organ harvesting in China. The CSSA organized Chinese students to protest that, too. On the Columbia University CSSA's website, they boasted that their constitution was reviewed by the local Chinese consulate, and their advisory board consisted of 2 members also from the Chinese consulate.
Wait a minute. These CSSAs are directly working with the Chinese government?
Some of them are. This foreign policy article showed that the Georgetown CSSA gets half its annual operating budget from the Chinese embassy. People have been digging up other links as well. Here's a video from the George Washington University CSSA saying that they're directed by the Chinese embassy, found by the same reporter. The University of Tennessee CSSA says they get funding from the embassy, and they also require members to believe in the One China policy. The Southwestern CSSA, which is an umbrella organization that includes CSSAs from 26 universities, requires any candidates running for office to be approved by the Chinese consulate in LA. I could go on.
Please, don't. So, a lot of those statements you showed are in Chinese.
Yeah, they don't always translate them to English.
Are they trying to hide their links to the CCP by using a language spoken by 1.3 billion people? Those people would make terrible spies.
Well, remember, a lot of the spying going on here is actually the CCP using Chinese students to spy on each other, just to make sure they're not doing anything out of line. Here's a case of a Chinese student activist who recorded a call from the Chinese police asking him to spy on fellow activists. Chinese students in Australia have found things they said in class were reported back to the Chinese police by other students. Think about it, having something you say in a college class outside China reported to Chinese authorities.
That's awful. I wouldn't want to be held responsible for anything I said in college. Okay, so you've convinced me that this is an issue that's at least as important as spying. Is there anything we can do about this?
Well, obviously we should all expose what the CCP is doing. But besides that, I think the most important thing we can do is to separate the CCP from ordinary Chinese people. We need to understand that the Communist Party has a very specific agenda that they use Chinese people for, but we shouldn't blame all Chinese people for what the CCP is doing.
But that's not the way a lot of Chinese people see it.
Well, that's true. The CCP has done a great job of making Chinese people think that the Communist Party is the same thing as the country and the people. If we do the same thing, we're helping them. Look, imagine being a Chinese student here in the U.S. It's a completely different language and culture. You can be pretty isolated from mainstream American society, and you're constantly told by Chinese media, by the Chinese education system, by your friends, that America just wants to keep China down, and therefore keep you down. If people start calling you a Chinese spy, doesn't that just make you believe it's true?
So what are you saying?
I'm saying don't vilify Chinese people. Treat them like individuals. Isn't that part of what makes America great?
So you're saying we should make America great again?
Why do I even bother?
Thanks, Shelley. So what do you think? Leave your comments below. Once again, I'm your host, Chris Chappell. See you next time.